The FCIA presents Fibre Channel Zoning Fundamentals. What is zoning?
I wanted to just give you a quick overview, folks, of zoning. Zoning is a mechanism for partitioning a storage area network, right? And you can also think of it in terms of a little bit of security in that same environment. So the zoning standards got added into Fibre Channel in the mid 90s. And really in 1998 was the first time that the switch providers at the time began to implement zoning. And it was an interesting scenario because it came about over a period of time. And part of that had to do with the fact that not all operating systems treat storage the same way. And so as funny as it may seem to people today, back then, one of the challenges that we had was as you started mixing Windows, and in particular Windows NT, into these storage area networks, we had a challenge where Windows was effectively the 2-year-old child in the house. Anything it could see was mine, mine, mine. And if it could see it and reach it with its crayon, it would write a volume label on it, which wasn't really good for other operating systems. And so the ability to isolate, isolation of functional groups also became a focus, isolation of the operating systems, as I mentioned, protocols as well. So some of the very early deployments for Fibre Channel were actually IP over Fibre Channel. So IP over Fibre Channel and FCP over Fibre Channel had to be isolated from each other. And then storage sometimes and server vendors sometimes needed isolation as well. So, that was really kind of the scenario that it came down to. And today, it's the standard deployment for us, but it's always been a distributed fabric service. This is a little different than what you think of for other networking types. In our environment, every switch, it doesn't matter which vendor, every switch has an image of the zoning environment and of the name server environment, as opposed to having a couple of isolated platforms that are attached to the network that are supplying that data. And so it makes it extremely resilient. Even if something happens to one of the elements, everybody still knows what's going on. And it's a very explicit access mechanism. And it may seem a little overkill and a little granular to people sometimes, but sort of keep in mind that when you interfere with an application platform's access to its storage, to its data, that result is considerably different than just refreshing a browser, right? That pretty much comes down to what color is your favorite screen, because you're going to freeze the system. So, where are we now? Well, zoning is the default mechanism for SAN deployments. It allows partitioning and pretty routinely single initiator, single target zoning had been the standard. Rupen's going to talk to you about some shifts in that. Karen's going to talk to you a little bit about some deployments around it as well. But the baseline is that it allows for isolating a server to its storage, right? And very granular mechanism that is hardware enforced. And so to be very clear, regardless of what kinds of zones we talk about, the enforcement for the switch vendors that are in the market today is in silicon on the port. And so you can sort of think about it a little like a MACsec kind of, hardware enforced MACsec kind of implementation. It's not an exact map to that, but that's sort of something that most Ethernet folks would understand as a corollary. And so it provides you that very, very granular enforcement, and you're either a member of the zone or you're not a member of the zone. And if you're not a member of the zone, you can hammer at that all day long and you won't get any access. So from a security standpoint, it's extremely good. It also isolates noise. And so much like the origin of VLANs was really to isolate broadcast traffic, because anybody who's ever had responsibility for small children knows that being tapped on the shoulder every 3 seconds with mom is not something you want, right? So isolation of broadcast traffic or registered state change notification traffic, which is what RSCN stands for, is isolated within the zone as well. And so, it gets to cut down some of the broadcast traffic that's involved. So just sort of, give you an overview of what's going on here, because Rupen's going to walk you through actual zone types, and Craig's going to tell you how it works, and then Karen's going to show you some best practices for it. But it's really this concept of isolating to individual environments, right? So the fabric basically provides a set of services out to the environment. The zone environment is one of those things. You can have multiple zone configurations with one of them active at a time. But you can also have zones that overlap, and pretty routinely, storage arrays end up in an overlap sort of scenario because they're a shared resource between multiple platforms. And I want to also make the point, and I think Karen will talk about it too, that as we talk about non-volatile memory express, or FCNVMe2 as the standard is, non-volatile memory express, or NVMe, is just another protocol running on top of Fibre Channel. It doesn't change your management. There's no magic to it in that sense. There's no, you don't have to go get a master's degree to handle it. It's the normal Fibre Channel zoning you already know, right? So there's no massive change to that. So really think about it in terms of visibility, security, and access, and that's really what we're doing with the zone configurations, right? And so when you think about it for deployments, whether you do it as based on the worldwide name of the devices, right, which sometimes gets referred to as soft, or based on the ports on the switches, which is sometimes referred to as hard zoning, keeping in mind that everything is still enforced in silicon. Deployment is always driven through fabric configuration, right? That source can be management tools. You can script against the switches. Rupen's going to explain to you one of my favorites that I wish more and more people would do, which is target driven for those environments, and he'll walk you through that. But think about it from an automation standpoint. Please always think about the idea of aliasing in the environments as well, right? Because most humans don't really do well with scary alphanumeric strings. At my age, I can't even remember maybe 2 or 3 IPv4 octets, never mind worldwide names. So symbolic naming, aliases, good plans. Automation, good plans. Yes, you can still use CLIs, but that's humans make typos. So think seriously about the automation side of this.
For more resources on Fibre Channel zoning fundamentals, visit the FCIA YouTube channel.